Didn't the other kids tell you not to come here? Go back before it's too late!
At the heart of horror, there has always been more than spooks and scares.
Sometimes, it's not what you see, but what you hear.
Welcome to Sound Scary.
Each week, we talk to the artists,
The musicians,
the fans, the people who haunt the shadowy corners of your mind.
join us as we delve into the deepest
Darkest.
and most unforgettable earscapes.
Welcome
To Sound Scary.
Welcome back to another episode of Sound Scary. I am your host, Ryan Coltrera, and I am joined as always by my co-host,
James Oster. And this has been such a good week for the show, Ryan, because we're having these amazing people that I fucking love. And today we have one of the coolest guys I know. He's incredible. He's a producer, he's a writer, he's a director, he does pretty much everything. James, you act, right? You've done acting.
I mean, not well, but yeah.
I don't care. You've done acting. You probably kicked ass.
We'll count it.
Welcome, James Cullen Bressack. James, welcome to the show, man.
You're gonna have to deal with the surprise guest, because my cat will not stop trying to join the Zoom. So he's gonna continuously just try and climb up into the camera. It's what he does.
Dude,
I love cats. Your cat is more than welcome.
His name is Martin Scorsese, so he knows a lot about film. So
Of course it is. Martin Scorsese, you're welcome on our show any fucking time you want.
I can't believe we got Martin Scorsese on our show.
wow. Yeah, exactly. You guys got Martin Scorsese on the show. It's gonna be great. Martin Scorsese.
This is making me edit.
I thought when you were doing that intro of like the super talented writer, director, producer, one of the coolest people you know, I thought we were going to do like a Martin Scorsese joke there. I thought.
You know, I never.
I didn't realize you were complimenting me. I was like waiting for the punchline about the cat.
No, I'm a big complimenter, and we've known each other for years, my friend.
Yes.
I've been wanting to get you on this goddamn show for a long fucking time. So thank you. You have made a movie that made me laugh, that made me cry, that made me feel things, and I fucking thank you for that. Murder Anyone. You decided to take your father, your late father's script, and I'm gonna get teary-eyed. Oh my gosh! And you made a film about it. You and it's really lovely. Why did you decide to do that? What was the inspiration to take your father's work?
You know, I appreciate the kind sentiment on your end, and it's actually a bunch of different things. I mean, my dad, when he got sick, one of the last things he asked me to do was go onto his hard drive and make sure that his movies, like his scripts that he had written, just didn't like sit on a hard drive and like die with him. And so I went through his computer, which sadly I have to admit, he passed away a couple years ago now, and it took quite a while for me to actually like bring myself, like I kept the computer like stashed away in my closet, but it took a while for me to like actually plug it in and dig through to find the scripts. And one of the first scripts I found was Murder Anyone, which is Murder Anyone. And when I found that, it kind of really struck a chord with me too, because one of the last creative endeavors my dad like actually did when he was starting to get really sick is he was putting on plays. And so he was like spending his money that he had like earned just like putting on plays. And I was like, Dad, why are you wasting your money putting on these plays? And I was like, you should just turn them into a movie. Like the kind of money you're playing. He's like, art is not supposed to be about that. Art is supposed to be about like art. It doesn't matter if they're making money. Like, and I was like, well, you're putting on plays in like LA. This isn't New York. He was from New York. So he loved theater. And he grew up, in theater. He was like from the Playhouse of the Ridiculous and stuff. they toured Europe, and I mean, he loved theater. And so he was like, all right. And then he, left and then came back and had written this play about two writers arguing about whether they should write a play or a movie. And then he put on that play, and that was the last thing that he did creatively, was he put on and directed this play. And, the whole time I'm watching it and I'm like, this is a great play, but Dad, and it's all about these two writers arguing. So a lot of it kind of felt like he was kind of jabbing at me a little bit to why, how dare you tell me not to, do plays? And I was like, Dad, I agree, but at the same time, why didn't you just make it a movie? And he goes, well, I made the play, you can make the movie. And, that, I just remembered that conversation when I was going through the computer, looking at stuff. And, I'd done a couple Bruce Willis movies and the Mel Gibson movie. And, as much as I loved those experiences, those were movies where I was hired to tell somebody else's story, as a director. And I'm very grateful that happened. But, it wasn't this thing that was super close to my heart and close to home. It was, making, just fun movies. And I was like, well, why don't I make something just for art's sake? And so, the whole movie is about art versus commerce and the inner battle that we have as creatives of do we sell out or do we, do what we believe in as a creative? And I was at that struggle point in my life where I didn't know which way to go. And then lo and behold, my dad's script comes to me at the right time. And I was like, this is what I should do. And so I took my money and I, invested it in making this movie, a movie that I had never made something in this genre and was pretty sure I would never see any of the money back. But I was like, let me just make this, because as long as just one person would have liked it, which is him, I as long as I make the movie that he would have liked, it's worth it. And so, I put it together. And my dad always told me that, until I was, 30 years old, I should make every movie I possibly could that I got asked to direct, because no matter what, every single movie I would do before I was 30 would be known as my early work, at some point in my career, because he believed I was going to go on and do a bunch more movies and bigger and better stuff. And so about a month and a half before my 30th birthday, I put together this movie so that the last movie of my early work was using his words to turn it into a film. And that was, that's kind of was the end of that chapter of my early work and my last hurrah at doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah, I'm touched. I'm literally touched right now. That's
yeah, seriously, same.
Wow.
And I mean, if kind of following up on that, kind of in the process of taking this stage play and adapting it to the screen, what changes did you find yourself having to make, or was it pretty much a literal one-to-one translation?
It's difficult in a sense, because the movie was directed essentially by 4 people, if that makes sense, because I had seen my dad's play, and he directed that play, and I had a recording of that play. So I had how he intended it to be, and I'd seen that. And so I wanted to honor that, but I also still wanted to be able to put my own spin on it as well. So, there was my dad, the director, me, the director, and then I felt the 2 characters that are arguing within the movie, George and Charlie, are also kind of directing the way it would look, because it's they're the way one character's pulling it more towards theater and the other character's pulling it more towards film, should translate, creatively and visually. And so that kind of affected the style of the movie a lot of the time. And I also didn't want to overcomplicate the style at any point, because I wanted it to still feel like it had its stage roots at all time. Somebody was fighting to keep that stage in there, that play in there. And so we, that all existed in it. So, I mean, that was, that was a difficult juggle, but I was able to, like, all of the color stuff and all of the, going into black and white and all, like, seeing the ghosts and seeing the zombies and a lot of that stuff, and a good amount of the stuff that's in it changed in order to adapt to film. And that was that was also a tough process, because what I had was the play script. And so the way a script is for a play is it's not like new scene, new scene, new scene. It's like lights up over here, lights up over there, people walk in over here. And so, like, I kind of kept, like, I had to restructure that. And then also at the same time, I kept the intermission that was in the play, because that was like a joke in the play. And I thought, like, yeah, it's funny, let's just throw it in there. And so, I tried to preserve a lot of it while still putting my own spin on it.
I love the intermission, by the way. That was really clever.
Yeah, good call keeping that in.
Yeah. Look, James, this is what, when I wrote the review, when you called me, you asked me to watch this, and I was like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to check it out. Watched it that night, and what I was really taken by was the care that went in. Not only, I want to talk about the actors and everything, but I want to talk about how you design this film to basically be a theatrical, like a play that fucking comes to life in front of your eyes on I'm assuming a fairly low budget. This is a really, really creative move. Was that always the idea, to kind of finding that battle between, to play, no, it's a movie, no, it's everything, it's both?
Yeah, I really wanted to make something that, like, evolved in front of you, and so, like, kind of the way I pictured it is, like, it's almost like, imagine they're, like, drawing a picture and then they're erasing things, but then they're adding color to it. And so, like, that's kind of the thought process that went in the beginning. And so that's why, like, it starts on a bare bones set. And then the set starts to have, like, certain, like, things in it that are there. And, like, now it has a couch and a door and a this and a phone. And if you notice, all of those things that are there actually exist, like the globe that she opens and all that stuff in the painting, all that stuff then exists later on in the actual when it becomes a movie. And so I thought it was fun to carry all that stuff and move into it and have it evolving, like as if it was being created in somebody's mind and they weren't really sure where to go, and they were starting to fill in the blanks as it went. And that's kind of visually what I was trying to go for.
You did. It looks great.
Oh, yeah.
You got that 100%. Yes.
Yeah, it absolutely succeeded. And, and Jimmy made mention of your cast too. Your film features a particularly fun performance by Maurice LaMarche. And, I grew up on a steady diet of Pinky and the Brain. And in your film, you made a mention of a family connection to him in that show. And I was wondering if you could kind of expand on, your history with him and with Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah, so Mo has known me since I was like 2 years old, I think, maybe younger. Mo was my dad's best friend. And my dad was the one of the head writers of Pinky and the Brain, and Mo was the voice of the Brain. And so I'd known him the whole time, and so the character of George was based on my dad. He based it on himself, and so I thought, who better to do an impression, the guy who does all these impressions, who better to do an impression of my dad than his best friend. And awesome. So I called Mo, and without hesitation, he was like, yeah, like, I don't really do on-screen film, but like, let's do this. And so I was like, this is great. And then, the other writer, Charlie, was based on my dad's actual writing partner from Pinky and the Brain of 25 years, 30 years, Charlie Howell, who is Charlie in the movie. And so it was really great to be able to bring together, people that he loved and cared about, and that cared about him in this movie. It was I think very special to be able to have all those people together in one place. And Carla, who plays Marie, was in the original stage play. She played Marie, and so I had her do that character the same way that he had her do it. I just basically was like, do the thing that he had. And so she laughed and found it funny. I thought she did a great job, but it was just really, special to have, at all times, people that knew him so well, and knew, different aspects of him than necessarily I did.
Yeah.
That's also awesome. That you really feel the heart in it.
Yeah, no, you do. And there's also a lovely cameo in here. Well, not a cameo, well, kind of cameo for horror fans everywhere, especially Nightmare on Elm Street fans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird. Like, I wanted to, when I wrote the review, I didn't want to mention her name because I wanted to surprise people. Because I love Lisa. She's great. But I feel like
Lisa's
we
great.
can talk about it now, right?
Yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, she's in the opening credits, so.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but I love Lisa, and funny thing is that the Freddy Krueger joke that was in the script was in the play. Like, that existed way before that.
The chicken costume was a last-minute decision. I was going to go as Freddy Krueger, but I've gone as old Freddy for every costume party and Halloween outing since I was 9.
Well, it's a very good chicken costume.
And it suits you.
Because my dad thought it was hilarious because I have a giant Freddy Krueger tattoo on my shoulder. He thought it was hilarious how much I love Freddy Krueger. And so, I thought it was just really cool to put Lisa in it because I thought that would just be great. And I thought she was wonderful in it. And she's just one of the sweetest people.
I love that. Like, just off camera here, I have my Freddy Krueger shelf. So like I love that. I got my glove hanging here and just like love the little Freddy love you put in there, and the fact that you have that as a tattoo is extra cool.
Yeah, it's giant tattoo, and my thing shirt won't. I'd have to like rip the shirt.
James, you've come from a pretty, you are very good. You're a very efficient director, especially dealing with a low budget. What was it like dealing with this, and was it easy to kind of? I feel like it was from the beginning, you're like, oh, I can see this being fairly cheap, but you get there's a lot of stuff here. Was it difficult to get the money and raise the money and really get this thing going?
All of the money was, best way to say it is like, I spent my paycheck from the Mel Gibson movie making this movie. So like, I spent everything I was paid on that movie, or like, well, not everything, but I spent like my paycheck in it. So like, I financed the movie myself with my own money. And I remember, my producing partner, Jarrett, I started to sound like my dad because like, I told him, well, this is how much I want to spend doing it. And then like, I'd say like, oh, well, I want this. He's like, well, you can't afford that. I'll go, it's my money. We'll just pay for it. Just add it to the budget, And so like, it definitely ended up being a bit more than expected because I kept wanting things. What
was what was something that you were like, oh no, we have to have this in, I don't give a fuck about the money?
One of the things that was like really, really important to me is the location that we filmed at. Most of the place, it was more expensive than anticipated, but like all of the locations that were within budget just didn't look as good on camera. And I was like, I like this place. It's got like really good texture and really good bones, and it just felt like I was like, this is where this whole place, this place is perfect. It should look like that.
Nice.
And speaking of kind of the look of the film, one of the things I loved about your movie is it has such a range of kind of visual inspiration, from like kind of a film noir vibe to neon soaked horror aspects. And like, I was hoping you could kind of touch on what was your visual inspiration for this film, like what films or moods.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny because I went through like different stuff. So it was like, like the Casablanca look, and then it got like more and more noir-y as it went on. Like, well, like the more and more they got into writing, the more and more noir-y the camera work and lighting became in the writing world, because it's almost like they were like, thinking of themselves as like Hemingway or something. So they're like getting like super into this.
Yeah.
and then we looked at a lot of noir films and for that, and then like Orson Welles stuff, and then when we got into looking at the horror stuff, I wanted like the seance scene. I wanted it to feel like an 80s horror movie. And so like we went like, very neon soaked 80s horror, like, like a la like, Frank Henenlotter's Brain Damage, like, just really like doing up or like, like a slightly like Italian giallo. And then once like, the stunt doubles come in, if you notice like there's all these lens flares and everything starts to feel like way more like an action movie. And I started to kind of like film it differently and light it differently. And then, the whodunit, it was like a lot richer in color, and that's when they're like doing the British stuff, and that's where we tried to go like very much almost like Knives Out in the color temperature and the feel of it. And then the standard like horror movie was when Marie first shows up, and so that's where it's like the colors are a little bit muted and stuff. But then we also like like there's the Judy Garland spotlight look, and like we go through like a lot of different looks, because I think the characters that are writing it just can't really tell what they really want the movie to be. And so I thought it was really funny to be able to go through all these different genres visually, with lighting and camera work, where people are just like, wait, hold on, everything's just changing over and over again. It's because they can't really decide what they want to make it.
I love that you brought that up, because I think a lot of times, a lot of modern filmmakers, a lot of modern film fans, they forget how important movies like Casablanca, movies like It Happened One Night, movies like Some Like It Hot are. And you are referencing, you made a film that is meta, but you also, it was meta to classics, to movies that we grew up on, that we saw on TV and that we idolize in a way. Are those movies that connect to you still, like those classic?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I'm super into, and that's the kind of stuff, like, I didn't go to film school. I went to movies, and my dad like literally would make me watch these movies. So like, like my dad would literally like tell me I didn't know anything about movies until I watched like Casablanca, or like I didn't know anything about movies until I had watched The Third Man, or I didn't know what a comedy was until I could tell him what the Walls of Jericho were from like he would bring up like His Girl Friday and like everything, like, and that's why you see there's like the mid-Atlantic fast speaking that happens in this movie, like the actors start getting into that because it's paying homage to that. And there's and then there's a lot of mentions of Death Trap and the Mouse Trap, and like that's who my dad was. He loved that kind of stuff, and it's very funny because like my dad would put on a movie like Casablanca when I was a kid, and he would put it on and he'd pause the movie and say, why are they only showing his hands? And I'd be like, at the time I thought he was just trying to drive me crazy to make sure that I was like paying attention and not like falling asleep because it was like a black and white movie. But then like I realized, no, he was making me understand why the director was making actual decisions, like what was going on inside the movie. Why was this being done a certain way? And that there were decisions behind a choice that I was seeing on camera. And that's, that's what me and my dad would do. We would just watch movies and have conversations. That was like 90% of our relationship. And so, a lot of the movies, I have to hand it to him. Like the movies that I grew up on, I had, I've seen most of the classics, and I don't even know if these things are on Netflix. Like a lot of the stuff that like I grew up watching, like, I think they're only on like TCM or something like that, but I at least have all the DVDs.
That's it. So Ryan, I think we have time for about one more question. We are about at the end of the show. Would you have anything that you want to check in on?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know kind of looking forward, now that you've, found yourself going through his system, going through his scripts, do you see yourself making another one of your dad's projects?
I definitely do. There's a couple that are percolating that I'm like looking at. One of which is another one of his plays that I that's a straight up comedy. There's another one that him and I were co-writing together that's a horror movie. That's like straight up horror movie about like a like whitewater rapids river rafting, and like that should be like a cool one. But I think the next one I'll probably dive into is he wrote a thriller like in the vein of something like a Gone Girl, and I think that might be the next step, and that's it's called Angel Fire.
Ooh, great title.
Nice.
Great title. Well, James,
We'll definitely keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah. I start filming December 19th.
Okay.
On the Van Damme movie.
This won't make the cut, so like strictly secret. But what do you got? What's the Van Damme movie?
Oh, it's already been announced, so I can talk about it.
Yeah,
but it's
sweet.
Yeah, but it's
let's add this in.
It's called Darkness of Man, and it's
Nice.
it's a neo noir film where Van Damme plays an alcoholic ex-operative that accidentally gets his informant killed and is left with the responsibility of being the bodyguard of the informant's kid. Wow. And so like he's taking care of this kid, and it's a it's a really, you know, heartfelt, deep movie, but it also has like some really dope action, and like it's noir through and through. Like it has like Van Damme is going to be doing like, you know, narration throughout, where it's like, you know, it's super
Nice.
super noir.
Hell yeah, I'm always on board with the muscles from Brussels, man.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll put that in the show. We'll put that as an extra blurb. We love having you on. We would love to have you and Jarrett come on together.
Yeah, definitely.
You're amazing. I'm glad to know you. Glad to call you a friend. And where can people see this movie? See this movie? Murder anyone? See it.
So it's right now, it's still doing the rounds on the festival circuit, but it'll be available for everybody to see. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Everybody will be able to see it February 7th. It'll be out on VOD. So
Well, I encourage everyone watching this to check it out. We had such a great time with it, and I know our audience will too.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, if you love movies, if you love the style and smart writing, please do yourself a favor. Go see this wonderful film. You're a talented man, dude. I'm so honored that you joined us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for taking the time to chat. I'm very excited for people to see it, and I'm excited that you guys loved it so much.
Yeah, we
really did.
9 out of 10, baby.
My dad would have
Nice.
said that I did an okay job directing, but it was all the writing. So
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah, credit where credit's due.